Welcome, everybody, to the Heart of the Artist. I am your co host, Whisper Poet. Where's my girl, Catalyst?
Hello.
There you are, gorgeous. Today, we have a huge treat for everybody. We have the Naked Poet, aka Nopal Flower. Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to the Heart of the Artist.
Hey, thank you for having me here. It feels like a great honor.
Thank you so much. We're coming a little bit later today because you were on the West Coast and we had to do a
Mhm.
little time shifting. So this is a little bit later than our regular broadcast time, but that will not affect anybody who's going to watch this on YouTube.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we were talking about when we were off camera. I first met you in Instagram poetry space under your handle of Nopal Flower.
Mhm.
And of course, you also have your handle, The Naked Poet. And then you were talking about all of these really cool things that you do with photography and production. And I mean, you just got a finger in every pie. Talk a little bit about all this stuff you got going on.
I find myself to be versatile, uh, just experiment with everything, right? Um, Being an artist, I've always considered myself a writer at first. And, poetry has just been something that I've enjoyed doing. And then once you start performing it, right, then it's getting into, all of a sudden you want to see more events or shows that cater, but also, represent more of like either where you're from. Um, so I was starting to do it more out of like representation, right? Um, the first event that I did, which was online, and I mean, I have to say, with COVID, I think it really pushed for myself to, try everything, right? Give it a chance, because we were on lockdown. So it's like, might as well, figure out what it is that you like. What do you have a passion for? What kind of hobbies are you interested in? So coming to do events online and then really just, utilizing like my own personal people, connections, even just asking, right? Asking like, would you like to be part of this? And seeing an idea flourish, right? From thought to then conversating with somebody and then bringing all the pieces together for a particular thing. uh just, that to me is enjoyable. It was a lot of fun. And then you also, gather people together that could fit a particular theme, or have kind of the same mindset. It just, to me, doing that event coordinating, the organization of it, uh, just that has been the most enjoyable. And now seeing myself develop into it, from going from virtual to actual live events, has been a lot of fun as well. And again, it has to do with, seeing that there's a need and creating those spaces for that need, right? The whole, idea of like, if you build it, they will come. And it really is true. Like, you might think, oh, no one really cares about it, but then when you see people really being in support of it, right, from the people who are part of the event to the people who show up to the event, that's how you build communities, right? Then there's photography, which is something that I just always enjoy doing. um Me being as like the main subject of my photography, uh I will say, with the plug Naked Poet, right? It used to be Say Her Name. I created that Instagram page particularly because I was going through a pre-diabetic moment in my life, and I was, overweight. I wasn't feeling happy about myself, and so I created this handle, to encourage myself, right? To encourage myself in my journey and getting healthier, being more confident and proud of the person that I am and the body that I'm in, no matter what shape. And so seeing how that has progressed over this short amount of time from 2019 to now, uh, you know, I sometimes still shy away from the camera, but not as much as I used to. And I appreciate when I take photos of myself, you know. I'll take photos of myself when I'm in my worst moments as well, to kind of remind myself this is where I used to be, but this is not where I am now. And this is not where I'm always going to stay. Um, and those are more personal pictures of myself. I don't post those. Well, no, I have posted some. Uh, Going through depression, I've posted some in regards to that. Uh, Even some of the sexy pictures could be in my moments of depression and or not feeling good about myself, but then making myself feel good about myself. So, documenting that. But I, do family portraits. I do portraits with pets. I do event portrait photographs. So like when I create an event, a live event, I'll also take photographs of that event. um, and actually, right now, I am learning to be a DJ. So that's something I'm wanting to experiment and try out. Book reviews. I love to read. I love to support other poets, other authors, and writers. So I read people's books. I post a review on the Prickly Pear Productions and, just try to really give shout outs to people there. And then I as well do editing services for anyone who's trying to get their manuscript out and get it prepared for publishing, whether self-publishing or seeking out a press or a publisher to get their book out. Trying to think, what else do I do? I think that I've covered most of everything.
Yeah. So I a lot like lots of questions. I think the first one that jumped right out to me is the journey with the self photography, and I like how you characterized it as self photography instead of selfies, because
Hmm.
I think that selfie has a very what's the right word?
A different tone to it or so, or like
Yeah.
not the
Like a
best
vanity,
reputation.
almost like a vanity thing.
Hmm.
And having been through a similar journey myself with self photography, and it's it's more than just a vanity project, and
Hmm.
really relating to you, with body issues, weight issues, health issues, blood sugar issues, like all of those things.
Hmm.
How do you find the the self-affirming aspect of a photo that you take of yourself, where you have done this for you, whatever you're wearing, however you've composed the photo?
Hmm.
um, yeah.
Mm, okay. I'm like, you might have to rephrase that question, but uh, so like I said, there's a lot of photographs that I don't post on IG
Mhm.
that I do for myself. Or like and I I took I took my sister's dog out for a walk about maybe a year and a half ago or something. And I thought about it. It was like a quick thought where it was like, everyone should have an OnlyFans. Like, why not? Because there's always going to be somebody who's going to want to see someone naked. And in 2020, that's when I started up my own OnlyFans. And even on that platform, I don't have everything that I've taken photographs or videos of is posted on that. Um, and for me, when I put on a really good outfit, or when I'm just really feeling good about myself, or maybe I've hit a milestone somewhere and I'm just in this good place, or sometimes not even in a good place. Uh to document my growth and my evolution of just seeing myself, right? Of seeing the confidence that I'm building, the journey that I'm going through is just it's a great feeling because no one else is going to document that, right? No one else is constantly going to be taking pictures, only you. It's kind of like everything else. It's like you have to do the work to and then praise yourself because no one else is going to do that. No one else is going to celebrate you like you would celebrate yourself.
I love this so much because we talk about journaling, like people who go through mental health issues, right? We're
Mhm.
always talking about journaling. As poets, we're always talking about journaling. You're the
Mhm.
first person that I have heard talk about photographic journaling. Because do you do written journaling as well?
I do. I do. That's where I started. My
Mhm.
writing journey has started by journaling. I would do like diary entries. I had up to about 20 some journals before I graduated high school. And but I don't have those anymore because someone threw them away. um
Oh
I
my God.
have pieces of some of those journals, but not everything.
Oh,
And but anyways, no, my writing has started with journaling.
mhm.
Like I remember the first book I tried to create, I used a Super Nintendo book cover and then had blank pieces of paper in there, and that was going to be my first book. And it was, mini, I think it was like mini short stories I was going to create of a princess, possibly with like pretty much utilize my family
Mhm.
as like the characters in this story, but still make it fictional, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then that I think I only did like one short story in there, and then somehow that book disappeared. But like I remember creating it, like I'm gonna make my first book, and that was me at like I don't know, I was probably 8, 10, 7, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
Um, but from there, I started to journal and write more.
Mhm.
Um, Dream journals. I have a dream journal that I write all my dreams in, and it's been interesting because some of my dreams can be very vivid, and I have to write it down. Um, like I've woken up in my adult life to a dream that is leading me into a poem.
Mhm.
And so there's a couple of poems that I've written uh, that were based from a dream. Um, it's just, yeah, I think journaling, documenting in any shape, way, or form, whether it's photos, whether it's writing it down, is really important because again, no one is going to know our story if we don't write it down.
I love the idea of the concurrency of the written journal with the photographic journal because you've got electronic timestamps. So
Mhm.
if you were of a mind to do it, you could completely sync up. In fact, that what a cool book idea to
I
marry.
mean, it's also like a blog.
Mhm.
If you do it that way, you can. And that's the thing, there are some bloggers that they do that. They have photographs and they're like, here's their journal entry or their article having to contain those photographs with them. And to me, it's that's great to then kind of like see what they're talking about, give you a glimpse, right, of what they've experienced, not just in the written form.
Mhm.
um so yeah, I definitely.
You have such a grounded energy about you. You are very frank and open about polyamory. We've talked about, kind of some different adult alternative lifestyle things. But you're also, it sounds like, very connected to your family. How do you balance things that families might consider, kind of, I don't know what she's doing over there. How do you balance that?
Uh, that's pretty much two different worlds. um, it's actually kind of funny. So I was probably sexually active by the time I turned 17, but curious about it, right, at age 16. But I was still pretty, not fully there. And once I once I left home and got into college, my first sex party was when I turned 18. My 18th birthday was a friend of mine invited me and took me to the sex party. And everything just felt right in the sense of like being a voyeur, watching everything going on, um, and just being exposed to a different kind of lifestyle, right? Um, so being away from home, I was away from home pretty much from the beginning of my adult life till about 5, 6 years ago. So I've just moved back home, right? So it's been 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. And I still, my sister is aware of certain things, but I don't tell her everything. uh, it was maybe about 10 years ago. They decided to visit me, my sisters, my two older sisters. And it was a random visit. And I was actually, what is it? Obligated, not obligated, but I had volunteered to be part of an event, right? That was a lifestyle party. And since I was already committed, I decided I was going to take them instead. And I told them, what it was going to be. And it was their first experience going to that. Um, and it was, an eye opener for them too, but also an understanding like what their limitations are, uh, and, what their comfortability is. And, what my comfort level was, right? And so the three of us remained, even though I had already at that time had about like several years, maybe almost 10 years of experience being part of those events. Um, I remained a voyeur, you know, just because I was like, my sisters are here. I'm not going to do anything. And and so but having that experience with them, I was like, to me it felt great just to open that door to them, to be like, this is another part of me that is a part of me. Um, but this is not something that I could share with everyone. Uh, I'm very open with like my nieces, because again, I growing up the way I did of being body shamed a little bit. Uh, I very much express to my nieces that they need to love themselves no matter what size they are. Um, the pressure of from family, especially when there's old school ideals or values of like getting married, having to get a job, getting your education as much as possible, right? Like, not everyone needs to go to college. But if you want to, that's fine. Just know what your path is. Um, Not everyone needs to work a 9 to 5. You want to create your own type of career, create it. make it happen. Again, it's understanding and giving yourself that space to develop and know what you love and know what you want to do. So I very much support my nieces and my nephews in choosing what they want to do without the external forces being pressured on them. And so I try to be that non-external force. I'd rather be in support of whatever they want to do, whoever they want to be, um, because we need that as people. You know, we don't need another voice in our heads. Um, and so, you know, I had a conversation with a niece of mine, and she had also come to visit me around. This was like years later. Now we're like in 2017, and I happen to be hosting a lifestyle party at this time, and I didn't realize the conflict of time. And so the event happened. She stayed with a friend, and the following day I came to pick her up, and I told her what the event was, and she expressed to me that she was interested. And I told her, I was like, look, I can find you a lifestyle party, and I can take you, and I can be there with you to like talk to you about what's going on. But I can also find you a lifestyle party, drop you off, and then you just call me when to pick you up. Because I rather that they have that experience without having an adult that they might look up to or feel like they might look at them differently. Um, you know, and if they want to share their experience with me, they can share their experience with me. I've always been open with them about recreational use, you know, and just because I want them to have that knowledge so then they know what decision they want to make for themselves. Um, Again, it's to not be judgmental, and to, you know, we're all going to grow and experiment and realize what our own limitations are, um, realize what our own values are, but also to not feel like we're doing anything wrong, right? We're just living life. As long as we're not hurting anybody, we're fine.
So I kind of feel we've gotten into some territory. I kind of feel like compelled to sort of editorialize a little bit because I feel like some people would watch this, you know, later on YouTube
Mhm,
and have a lack of understanding
mhm,
of some of the things, you know, that you're talking about. Maybe
mhm,
having never experienced it for themselves or not knowing anyone that's in, you know, a kink or a BDSM space.
mhm.
Um, and tell me if your own experience of this in California, but in BDSM culture, if one goes to a BDSM event, you don't touch people without their permission. Like you would not even brush up against someone casually in
Mhm,
a hallway
mhm,
without permission. And if a space made it impossible for you not to do that,
mhm,
um, you know, you're abjectly sorry. Like I'm so sorry.
mhm,
Like you
mhm,
don't touch people without permission. So
mhm.
for anyone who would see or this interview and have concern that, you know, she was dropping her niece off into a den of iniquity where the, you know, someone could get raped, that is the least likely thing that would happen at one of those events
Oh
because
yeah,
the
definitely.
constructs of interaction among people at that kind of event are very, very formalized.
Mhm.
And you don't have situations where people are touching people that don't want to be touched.
Yeah, and I'll emphasize a lot of the experience that I've had in participating in these lifestyle events. I've been it's it's security, but they call it the vibes, right? You're feeling people out. You're, you know, if you notice something strange off of someone or so, like you approach them. And a lot of the women that I worked with, I mean, a lot of the people that I worked with were women who would be vibes. And, we would have a few men who would be there in case if we needed to, utilize a little bit more masculine energy. But for the most part, the women who would be in the security positions made it very easy and comfortable for people to not step over the line. um Consent always and constantly, uh reiterated over and over. These lifestyle parties, they would have signs everywhere. Consent is sexy. Yes means yes. No means no. Maybe is a no. Silence is a no. Our training, we would always have training for all of these events, and in regards to discussing, any prior experiences that we needed to address on how to make the next event better. And yeah, consent is definitely important. Like I wouldn't drop off my niece somewhere if I had even the slightest inkling that something was going to go wrong. I wouldn't take her. But I've gone to these events. I'm pretty good at seeing what an event is about. I would even walk in there just to make sure everything is good. Okay, great. You know, um but yeah, I've had my best experiences at these lifestyle parties. Um, I think I've had worse experiences going to a public bar, right? And that's the other thing too. These lifestyle parties, it's very much emphasized the the non-use, right, of alcohol and drugs. Um, you can if you want to, but because sex is such a drug in itself, like you don't realize the amount of pheromones and endorphins your body is going through during and just even being around that type of environment. Um, so it's like, again, knowing your limitations, knowing your boundaries, knowing your capacity. And for me, sobriety is really important because when you're sober, you're more coherent to either not or do in giving your consent. Once you start to get inebriated and then you start going through that that energy, right, you start to feel a little bit high, and maybe sometimes higher than you normally are, and your thought process could be fogged because of that. So I really emphasize for people when they go to these type of lifestyle parties, especially if it's their first time going to these lifestyle parties, go there sober because you will be surprised. Um, and go there sober so then you can actually get the full experience, right? Not just behind, blurred eyes or anything like that. No, like really go and have an experience there. Um, that's meaningful for you. And, you know, as the first time that I had an experience there, I was a voyeur. I looked at everything, I looked at everybody. I checked out the dungeon, I checked out the performances that were going on that evening. I tried a little bit here and there, but not anything that, was pushing my limit, as a voyeur, just kind of more like, oh, that looks interesting, And so I think first time experience of just looking is is a great thing because you never know what you're gonna see. And maybe it might pique an interest, right, in wanting to do that next time.
And I
Um,
think I also feel compelled to like, jump in again and talk about attending an event and not doing a thing in the world except
mhm.
having some good food and talking with people.
Yes. Oh,
For
the food is so
for
good at these events.
for someone who has felt like an outcast their entire life because maybe they look different, they sound different, they're from a different background, maybe they have some aspect of themselves that they felt set them apart.
Mhm.
um, Going into a space where everyone is accepted, because the number one rule is what? We don't kink shame,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Well, consent is the number one rule, right? But
Mhm.
right in there with it, there's no shaming of other
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
So whatever however someone comes in and presents themselves, as long as they are within the boundaries of, you know, respecting other people's space and
Mhm.
respecting who other people are, and being there as an equal and loving and caring participant,
Mhm.
of the community space that you find yourself in.
Mhm.
You wear what you want, be who you are, however you attire yourself. If you have some fantastical outfit that you want to wear,
Mhm.
if you have a different color you want to put in your hair, or makeup that you want, like however you want to present yourself, whatever artistic expression of self has been within you and has been trapped by the regular world around you and you could never express it,
Mhm.
it's a safe space to be that.
Yep, definitely. But I'm glad you brought up the food. Yeah, because that with those type of events that could go on from like 7, 8 o'clock at night, maybe the earliest, right? Till like 6 or so in the morning. You need good food. And these type of lifestyle events that are like that have some of the best. Um and so good too because yeah, you're not just gonna be you get hungry.
So
You need
how do you see, like, or do you see, I don't want to make an assumption that it does, um how does, if it does, any of these experiences that you have, how does that express itself throughout your work as an artist, both poetry, photography, all of the different things that you're into?
um I think I've been getting a little bit more open with either wearing certain toys or uh pieces of jewelry or so, right? Into the outfits that I wear out. Like, okay, I don't wear bras. I hate bras. So that like my nipples are always going to be out. Uh um there's just certain constrictions that I just don't behold myself to. um I will say, like, this last weekend I went out and I was actually wearing rope. So I did like a mini shibari corset on my waist. And you know and the bra that I was wearing that particular evening, it was just kind of like a bustier kind of thing, right? It had so much string, I wrapped it around my neck, so it was looking like a choker.
Mhm.
And you know, anyone who knows shibari, right, would recognize the rope on my waist. Um, but it was also so subtle that no one could really tell unless you were really, really looking. So certain things like that I'll implement more into my outfits when I go out. Um,
And do you want to take a minute and explain to anyone who might see this if they don't know what shibari is? You want to explain what that is?
Shibari is like rope tying techniques. If you like to, make knots with rope on people's bodies, that's what that is.
And it's a Japanese art form.
Hmm. Yes, of rope tying. And I'm still new at it myself. Like, all I know is I've been suspended once a long time ago by these two wonderful people. They were a couple at the time. And the woman, Madam Butterfly, was she was the expert. and her partner was the rigger. And you know, and it just, to be bound and then being able to be put up into the air while you're tied, it gives a whole different sensation. And I appreciate having that experience. um and I feel like that's where I really was like, yeah, I need to have more rope in my life. But again, it's, you know, you have to be with people that you can really trust. um because if it's tied too tight, you can lose circulation on body parts. um you can really hurt yourself if not doing it right. um
Can you talk about trauma, emotional trauma, and how experiencing rope work helps you, if it does? I don't want to make an assumption for you, but if
mm,
that helps you process trauma.
I haven't really used rope tying with trauma, but I know it does help people. um I think it's the fact that, especially if it's like people needing touch, needing that comfort, right? To like, it's like to be consoled a little bit. And if you're not accustomed to having touch, but also it helps with issues of trust, right? Um, because you have to really trust someone, and you also have to really trust yourself in regards to giving that type of responsibility to somebody. Um, but I don't have, again, too much knowledge on how it's helpful, but I just know it is because I've seen some of my friends who have utilized it, and you know it gives them a whole different other feeling, and like a flip or a switch in their mindset after they've had rope play. um and it, I think, however, whatever methods we can use that can help us in having a better mindset and getting us out of those depressive modes, great. um I mean, I rather much do rope play than do drugs that are gonna, hurt my body in other ways, right? um but yeah, I wish I
That is
had more
an
information.
amazing
I
point.
don't have that much.
That is actually such an amazing point. Um, we as humans find ways to ease whatever pain, anxiety, hurt, fears, emotions. We find ways to cope with those things.
Mhm.
And you have a way that is, for you, drug and alcohol free,
Mhm.
that you are elevating your life, staying on your own highest frequency. And I think that's a really great call out.
Yeah. I mean, I've had my experiments.
So do
I
you
haven't
find
always
that,
I haven't always been drug free and alcohol free.
oh, yeah, I mean, people, we experiment, we're humans, right? But do you find, if you've been to an event, does that put you in a space of greater creativity following the event? Does that boost your creativity?
I, you know, it's there are definitely moments. Um, I think it's more the fact that, especially with those type of parties, I will go sober, just because I'm well aware of just the amount of energy that will go through your body when feeling everyone else's vibe, right? Um, and so I like taking everything in and being able to remember everything that happened. Um, and yeah, that can definitely especially if you like to do sensual poetry, erotic poetry, um, it'll get you to writing more. Um, I know, I'm trying to think. I think there was one or two events that I went to where there was one or two events that I went to where there was two artists that had gone to these lifestyle parties, and they were sketching people, right? They were sketching people inside their room, so people were aware if they wanted to be sketched, in they could go into this bedroom, and there was two artists in there doing live sketches. And that put them in a whole different other setting of their art being respected, but then also, them getting the chance of being able to life draw various bodies in other positions. And to me, that's a great way to kind of mix art with lifestyle erotica. um and so yeah, I think it definitely does one up people a little bit, just to have that different perspective, right? um but I don't know, I
Do you
always feel
feel
like.
like you're in a space in because you're in California?
Mhm.
Do you feel like you are in a space where alternative relationship styles, alternative lifestyles are, is it more socially acceptable there among, regular life or?
I would say in Los Angeles it is. um but where I got a lot of my experience was up in Northern California. And it was interesting being up there because there is a community up in Humboldt that is very open and very sex positive. Um, but, this community is also around a couple of towns where it is still conservative. And so it's just kind of finding your people and then creating this community to happen, right? Um, but like we would do, especially up there, their biggest party would be Halloween. And, they would get a venue that was, that could house maybe about, at the max, like 300 people. I think we would always get maybe about 100 to 150 people in there. And these would be people outside of our community. Our community was maybe about 30 to 60 people. And then we have 150 new faces that we've never seen before, but they're in this town and they come and join and be part of it. And so, so there is a need to have these type of communities within the normal social realms, right? Again, to because it's a space where we're non-judging, where there will be people who, like, if you're wanting to express a kink but you don't know how to express it, right? Our vibes people would come up to somebody, and we would notice, like, oh, okay, they're being more like a wallflower. Maybe they don't know how to say or ask for something. And we'll go up to them, see how they're doing, maybe ask them a couple of forward questions, and eventually find what it is that they're looking for, right? Find people that are interested in the same kink and everything like that, right? And that's how you get to meet people, and then, again, create community, create, these friendships or relationships with people that, that can help and you know allow our individual selves to flourish. um and so, but here in Los Angeles, it's, I know there's kinky communities in every county in some form or way. um but my most experiences here in Los Angeles and in Northern California. I will say this is that in Humboldt County, uh, yes, I was amongst a kink community, but I will say that the kink community up there was still lacking in POC kinksters. And POC is people of color. Um, so in some ways, me being Latina or my friends being Black or, someone being Native or Asian, we were in some ways, it felt like we were still being exotified because there wasn't enough of us in that community. Um, so if I saw other Latinas or, I was friends with people who were Black or Asian, we all kind of got together, and would go to these king parties as a group. Um, so then that way we didn't always feel like we were kind of out of place in a space for people who maybe be out of place. Like it was interesting to see that experience or to see that dynamic. Still all very welcomed. No one ever, I don't think any of us ever had like a fight or a confrontation with someone, right? Um I felt like that was the good thing. I never met anybody who was racist at a kink party. Um which I'm so glad. uh, um, you got to be really open minded to be going to allow yourself to go into these kind of kink parties, into these kind of lifestyle parties. And so for a lot of it, you know, I felt like I found allies in these lifestyle community parties.
Can
Um,
you speak a little bit too about the view of the kink community towards body types?
Again, very open, very accepting. I've seen people, even people who are considered thin, right? Where they'll start and they're fully clothed, maybe the first couple of parties that they go to in the first couple of years. And then all of a sudden, it's like maybe 5, maybe 10 years down the line, I see the same person and they are fully naked in the lifestyle party. And again, that's that comfort level, right, of yourself going to these type of events. But again, it's also the event itself where it's like you get to see sometimes the same people. um you develop again relationships with everybody in these type of communities because sometimes they are small niches. And you develop trust that you're not going to be judged. I myself actually, uh, when I was moving down here to Los Angeles in late 2019, and I went to one last lifestyle party up in Humboldt. And you know I remember when I first started when I was 18, and how the way I was dressed then to how I was at the end was I was half clothed the first time, right? Dressed sexy, felt beautiful, whatever. On my last kink party, I was fully naked. I went in, I think I went into the bathroom, undressed myself, or I undressed in front of people. I can't remember which one, but I remember I was fully naked and just, walking around the party, walking around into each room, and just, completely being myself amongst people and not feeling at all shamed or bothered that I was nude. Um, and I had a great time. Had wax thrown on me, and you know, played with some electric play, and just had a blast. Talking to people, having conversations, and all that.
I don't know if I am a large woman, and my entire life having felt I don't fit in, I'm too
Mhm,
fat,
mhm,
I'm not attractive, men don't find
mhm,
me attractive,
mhm,
and I'm just too big
mhm,
to be in space where not only are you accepted, you are viewed as beautiful.
mhm.
That, for me at least, was mind flipping. That was life changing. As a woman of size, did you have any kind of similar revelation with that?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I very much was very praised, uh whatever I was wearing or how I was being. I always had a lot of positive feedback, a lot of positive comments, flirtation, um, and it's great. It's great to have that in that type of space. Again, like I said, never did I feel like I was being judged. Uh, Never did I feel or have someone tell me something rude or mean. Like everyone was very respectful, and you feel very much like a goddess in these type of events. Um, and I've gone by myself, I've gone with friends, I've gotten to go with lovers, and it just women are very much praised and respected in these type of parties. um, we as women also have a lot of control in what happens in these parties, um, which I think is very important. When it is a highly dominated female ratio in these type of events, or when the women are the ones who are organizing these type of events, I feel that it even more goes in our favor, right? The type of men that are brought in these type of these circles, and you know, I've gotten to meet men in these circles that, uh, yes, they have masculine energy, but they also have their feminine energy as well. Some of these men, we've considered as allies, you know, and uh, and they're very much like, whatever we say goes. And I think it's great to have that type of space where every body of female, every body of male is respected, is enjoyed, um, is loved, is nurtured for who we are, right? Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of like anyone that I know who had like a bad experience. Um, and I would say it was probably because of it was just there was this one toy, right, where people could go in, but then it was like there was holes in this box and people could just kind of put their hand in there and like grab pieces of someone's body, and
Mhm.
you never knew who was like putting their hand inside the box or who was inside the box.
Right.
um but again, that's someone inside the box taking control and being like, I think one of my friends had to like slap a hand or something because they were pinching too hard. Um, but outside of that, I know a lot of women, again, very much praised, loved, appreciated,
Mhm.
and it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling when you find that space and you don't feel like you're out of place.
Right. I perceive that your pretty much your friend community is immersion within the kink space. Is that a fair, aside from family or work acquaintances or whatever. I mean, I'm getting the impression that, you've got a really good, strong, um, loving kink community surrounding you.
I I did up north. Here down south, because again, I've only been here now for 5 years, but then like COVID hit
Mm.
during these years. I I went to a couple of lifestyle parties, but I didn't go to enough of them where I could actually develop relationships with people.
Mhm.
So I went to like one last lifestyle party in like January, literally the end of January of 2020. And I had a great time. It was, wonderful and everything. Um, but then as soon as this pandemic hit, I completely shut down in regards to going to those type of events, because of the spread. And I just, couldn't really see myself going into those type of big events. But even though they're not that big, like going to a music festival is bigger
Sure.
than going to these type of lifestyle parties, because sometimes it can be very private, and so those private intimate parties could be like 10 people, maybe 15. um so
So you were in a position up north where you had this support, you had
mhm,
this sort of wraparound,
mhm,
and then all of a sudden you're here and you
mhm.
don't. Talk
I
about talk about what impact that had on yourself as a creator, as a creative, going from that to not having that.
Well, I'll say this, a lot of my creativity, I think, well, because I probably got more into my sensual poetry during the COVID, just because I wasn't able to physically do any of like the fantasies in real life, right? Um Also, I was in the middle of a transition from a breakup, and so my brain and everything was not into it was grieving. I was 6 years in a relationship and then no longer in this relationship. I was also 17 years living in a different area of California and then not living there anymore. So I was going through a lot of changes during that time. And so for me, it was, uh, what was it? It was abstinence, but not by choice.
I guess
um,
I guess where I'm trying to go with this, and I don't want to put words in your mouth.
mhm,
So tell me if this is not it at all. I have a perception that when one gets to a place of emotional safety,
mhm,
because you found community, because
mhm,
you found acceptance, and not just acceptance, but people who embrace you
mhm,
for who you are, every aspect of who you are, and
mhm,
there's and you're safe.
mhm.
What does that do for you as a creator, as a poet, as an artist, all the things that you do? How does that impact your ability to do those things?
Mm, I feel like in a way that type of community again, I was more sexually expressive.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like with COVID, yes, I held back in some ways, but I also embraced that lack as well, because I never always completely felt like I belonged up in Northern California. The kink community is where I felt most accepted.
Yeah.
But the other communities that I was needing was a creative community. I was the only writer in the group of people that I knew up in Northern California. And to and I actually did start developing a or was getting exposed to a writing community, a poetry community up in Northern California. But then I was moving, so I didn't get to really develop those relationships like I did in the kink community. Um, but with COVID, I was able to find writers who were sensual erotic poets.
Mhm.
And I was also able to find poets and writers and authors that were writers and authors. And, I felt like I got a lot of those two worlds through COVID, through Instagram, through utilization of technology. Um, and still be able to express myself artistically, and but also rely on myself more in finding those communities, not waiting for those communities to just kind of show up all of a sudden. uh so in some ways,
Would you say that you have a stronger voice as a poet because of your experience in kink world? Would that be a fair?
no, i
No?
i think I've always been expressive. It's just the kink world kind of broke maybe other boundaries that I may have placed on myself.
Okay.
um that I will say. uh because I feel like with kink and everything, having to do with that type of lifestyle, you really do question, like, well, why do things have to be this way? And why do things have to be this way? Why not try it this way? And be have a more open mind about it. Uh, I've always questioned things in regards to the way they are. So finding a kink community that goes against the grain, um, that has really, really helped me to be like, yeah, you're not wrong. Like you can try different ways of doing things. There's not just one way. Um, so now, yes, I would say it has helped me to be more boisterous in regards to how I want to express myself. But I feel like art in itself has also helped me to voice myself more, right? To give my art a chance. Um, yeah, I would say that.
Do you have any poems about where you're using, say, shibari or some other aspect of kink as a construct for the writing?
No, uh, not that I can think of, and not that I can pull out immediately. I would have to look really hard for that right now.
Yeah.
Um,
What would you say is your favorite genre of poetry that you're working on right now?
uh, you know, I find myself to be a very versatile writer, so I like to write about everything. Um, but my best forte is sensual erotic poetry. I'm like
Yeah.
trying to find something right now. Oh, well, sensual erotic poetry and self-love.
Self-love. Yes.
Mhm.
Always yes with self-love. Having hosted an erotic poetry room, I found it interesting because it felt like sometimes people um, who maybe didn't know as much about erotic poetry or had not experienced it sort of lumped it all together as if it didn't have the breadth of expression of other forms of poetry. And
Mhm.
that obviously is not true at all. Erotic poetry has great breadth of expression. um,
Mhm.
do you have something that we can have that's spicy but not?
Let me see. I'm trying to find something. Uh let's see. Maybe we could do this one. I don't know if this is going to be kinky, but okay. No, let me look.
Maybe stay in like PG-13 land.
Oh, now you're asking for too much. Uh, there might be a curse word in here, but I think that maybe this might be a good one. No. I have everything just clumped together, so there's always something.
Do you write
But
on paper or do you write electronically?
I have both. So I've been now recently writing things from paper to electronic because I want to start getting ready to let out some more books. I was gonna let out another book this year, or 4 books this year, but it just decided, life is lifing. So if I could do at least one book a year starting next year, then that's I think my intent. But
So Catalyst put something in the chat. She said, release the Kraken. She will keep us safe. So let it fly, sister.
all right, my God. All right. Let me just see. Okay. All right. Let me share. This is a very tiny piece, but it's in Spanish and I'll translate it in English. Orquídea negra, tan dulce eres, moras tan oscuras, colgado como aretes, honrando su especie delicada, con cada bocada, orquídea negra, mi favorita eres tú. So, Black Orchid, you are so sweet. Berries so dark, hanging like earrings, honoring your delicate species. With each mouthful, Black Orchid, you are my favorite.
That's beautiful. And the imagery of that is so lush.
All right. Lush it is. Oh no, that's not a good one. Oh, it is a good one, but I was like, it's not November yet. But yeah, like I said, I like to write about everything, and just having a good time with it. I'm an emotional writer, so for me, it's however I feel, what I'm going through in my life, right? Anything from like, uh, this self love journey, right? The good, the bad, the transitionals, um, honoring myself, the heartbreak, being in love with somebody. I feel like when I'm into someone is when I write maybe the more sensual erotic pieces, because it's writing from that moment, right? Or like trying to write but remember that moment and those feelings that you have with that person. And then creating fantasies, right, of what you want to do with that person or what you want them to do to you, is always fun.
It's
Um,
interesting because in a way, that's almost a sort of journaling. It's almost sort of a chronicling,
mhm,
of what you were experiencing at the time.
yeah, because then you can also look back and see, you know, where things went wrong. Or things that you enjoyed and that you would like to carry on over into your next relationships, things that didn't work, that now are your boundaries or your limits, right, with someone. um yeah, I think I journal. Like I said, I journal a lot. So I definitely have my journal entries with particular love interests that I've had in my relationship journeys. Um, and so, and it helps too because you reflect on yourself too, of like where you were at that moment in time. um were you communicating enough with your partner? Were you expressing, your wants and needs as clearly and as much as you needed to? um like this last relationship I had was, and I'm realizing that I feel like a lot of people go through this at some point in their life, where we find ourselves with a narcissist that we didn't realize was a narcissist, or we didn't realize what narcissism was until we start experiencing it. And so, this person I was with, it was, I just figured he was just an old grumpy man. Uh,
Okay,
you
I
know,
gotta, I gotta ask you, have you ever had someone become jealous over a piece that you wrote and be like, well, the piece you wrote about, her or him is hotter than the thing you wrote about me?
um,
You ever had comparative jealousy?
no, actually, thank goodness. Uh, no, I haven't come across that. Um,
Catalyst said poem envy. Well done.
no. Oh, I'm like, I almost want to. Can I say this one? Can I share this one?
Catalyst, she said, just go.
Okay, all right. Let me see. Let me see what this one was about. Okay. My throat stuck, lodged in my esophagus, is the taste of you. The kisses now parted from my lips, and this feeling of illness in the depths of my stomach. I'm disgusted. I have become so intoxicated by you, and I urge for your touch, for your caress, for the coos in my ear that beckoned me to you. I am plunging into a life of staying focused on me, the lies you told me only to feed the fantasies I wish for me. You played my heartstrings and I went along, unknowing that you were only strumming a romantic song. I'm left burdened, carrying pieces of you that I thought I knew, coming to the conclusion that they were pieces of me you tore out from my flesh, masking your carcass with my best dress. A reflection of me you only hope to be. You have violated me, but I was the fool to believe you could be different. And perhaps my choices have been too toxic. I don't know any better, but I'm trying my best despite what I didn't know. And I'll do better in the future with what I've learned. Okay, so that was definitely something having to do with the narc. Uh,
Masking my carcass with your best dress. What a line. Wow.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that is the thing, right? The and it's so crazy when I discovered, the whole thing of narcissism, the whole thing of really seeing them for who they were. Uh, this was just the beginnings of the breakup, and I decided to give myself the gift of going to Puerto Vallarta and seeing a friend and spending some time there. And so I spent a couple weeks out there, and I was watching YouTube videos, and suddenly these videos about narcissism started to pop up. I wasn't looking for it. I was not, you know, even thinking about it whatsoever. And the video that played and started talking about it described this person's character to the T. And I felt like, and that was the crazy thing too. It was then discussing about what your body, what your mind goes through when you start to get discarded by the narcissist. And I really did feel like I all of a sudden got like plunged into a ice cold bucket of water and was going through withdrawals. Immediately going through withdrawals. And I had a huge crying fit after that video just because it just all the reality of it just had hit me so hard. And then I was going in through this whole cycle of just watching all these videos for a little bit and trying to get tips on like really testing to see like is he really, because I was still kind of like no, like he can't be,
Right.
but he is. And I remember when I finally went to confront them, I wasn't confronting them to be like you're a narcissist. No, I was just wanting to see like okay, I'm going to act this particular way and see what they do, right? What their reaction is. And so I went in there and was very aloof, was very disconnected, very much not giving them very elongated answers. I was just very curt. And they played the whole crying wolf at one point. Uh like they pretended cry and you could tell like they were pretending cry because I was like, I saw no tears. And and I was actually also recording them at this point. Any interactions I was having with them, I was recording them. And I think at one point they realized they were being recorded, but they didn't react in the sense of like, you're recording me, blah, blah, blah. It was more like, but like there was a moment where their eyes flashed into the camera that I was like, okay, they're aware. I think. And but again, it was the angle of that particular moment where I felt like they were aware. uh I could also tell that they were faking. Like it seemed like, it was an act what they were putting on just so then the camera could catch the act a little bit.
Wow.
But after I was being aloof with them that day, the following morning they gave me a phone call and were erratic over the phone. Completely just yelling at me, screaming at me, how dare I show up at their house and blah 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 blah. And like they were they were judging me of being, what was it, of pretty much what they were reflecting on me. And so I thought that was, oh, they were projecting what they were doing to me as something that I had done to them. And uh you know and I found it interesting that they came out that way, but it proved to me again. I was like, oh yeah, they're they are definitely a narcissist. No
So
doubt
this
about
trip to Puerto Vallarta was literally where you discovered, did you discover narcissism or you just discovered that the person was a
I
narcissist or both?
discovered about narcissism in Puerto Vallarta. I was
So you,
literally hanging out with my friend, and and I was like trying to get over and process the breakup.
yeah.
I was processing the whole idea of like, am I leaving? Am I moving back down to LA?
Mhm.
And that was my like kind of time to kind of really figure out what my next moves were. Was being in Puerto Vallarta and deciding what I needed to do for myself.
Mm.
Um and
So
so
you literally discovered the concept and then identified like, wow, I have one of these people, like this was
in
my
my life,
person.
mhm,
Wow.
yeah,
That must have been, wow.
it was a big shakeup into my whole life. And the to me, the moment was I was leaving somewhere that I had considered a space, an area that I, considered like another home to myself. Humboldt County was where I, was living my adult life, where I started my adult life. That's where I went to college. That's where I had like my first real jobs. That's where I learned to struggle and was able to like, you know, be self-reliant, um, and just be in an area that I enjoyed because I had access to nature that I never really had access before to, because Los Angeles, yes, there are nature areas in Los Angeles, but not anything as close to proximity as it was in Humboldt County. I was amongst redwoods, living in the forest, and I was loving that type of access, to the outdoors. Um, and that I think was the best part that I loved about that area. It was still very much a very white town, um, but the POC community was coming up and was getting bigger after every few years. And so now, I actually got to go there last year. I was and I was celebrating my 20 years of being in college up there last year. But I got invited as a speaker, as an author at the college I had attended. And it felt great that like the university paid me instead of me paying to
Nice.
be on campus. And I felt so, it felt, and it was an honor to be there, to be recognized for the work that I've been doing. And I got to do a couple of events out there that I hosted, and was on the radio for a minute, and it was it was great. It was just great being around that area again, right? Visiting old stomping grounds, but also seeing the amount of being able to move on from that relationship and see how much I've grown as a person. Um, Although I will say, I mean, the jarring reality of figuring out who they were, and being able to move on from that took maybe like 2020, 2021, about that long to move on. And I was grateful, like, it didn't take as long as I thought it was going to take. But in some ways, learning to be open to people and to trust people, um that took a little bit more time. um and I don't shy away from meeting people, but I will say that experience definitely has me not necessarily be suspicious, but when I meet people that I might have an interest, right? uh a bigger interest in just a friendship,
Sure.
my vetting is a little bit more sharper, and you really do start to trust your instincts more, of or your intuition more, of who you want in your life and who you don't want in your life. um I think allowing people to just talk while you listen is very important, especially for women. um because you can really then listen to all the bullshit that comes out of a person's mouth.
I love that you've said this because I was actually speaking with a friend on the phone last night, and I was remarking to her that I had met someone and had been having a conversation with them. And I was like, that's just a really nice person, like just really good person. Like,
Mhm.
wow. And she asked me, well, how do you know? You haven't met this person in real life. How do you know?
Mhm.
And I said that exact same thing, that if you just listen and you let someone talk and they speak about their life and they speak about the choices they make and how they interact with others and all, you learn a lot.
Mhm. Oh yeah. No, I laugh because um it's so funny. So my latest encounter with someone was so I had met this person on FetLife, and we were conversating during the beginnings of COVID, and I was very upfront with anybody that I met. You know, I'm on lockdown. Like I'm not meeting people for 5 years. Like I'm gonna wait till this ends, or at least this gets a little bit better. And so we were just having conversations, and you know, here and there we like traded pictures of how we looked, you know, and and he was very honest. He told me, you know, he was living with a partner who they weren't really, you know, because of COVID, they were living together, but they were no longer like together, right? And but as our conversation started to get further out, I realized that he would only talk to me when he was outside, never inside the house. And so I was like, that's kind of suspicious. So I ended up telling them, I was like, you know what? I'm not really feeling this type of, you know, development of our friendship, because you have this person living with you. You say you're not doing anything, but you know what? I'm just not interested in being involved. So I cut it. Well, this year they reached out to me in early April or late March. They had to do some digging because I didn't have my old phone number that they had in 2020. And somewhere in between 2020 and 2024, they did reach out to me again, but I was involved with someone else. And I was very rude with them in that interaction of telling them that they were stupid, you know, that they were barking up the wrong tree. They should leave me alone. So I blocked them. And, but anyways, they found me, and I had found out that they finally had ended that relationship with that person that they were living with in 2020, just either the beginning of this year, if not late last year. So they were single, you know, I'm currently single. And when they called me, I kind of recognized their voice right away, but I couldn't remember their name. And during that beginning conversation, it was a lot of love bombing, right? It was a lot of like, oh, you know, you changed my life, blah, 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 this and that. And I was like, I don't know about this. But I conversated with them a couple of times. I actually even went to meet them in person and we hung out a little bit. But again, I allowed them to talk the entire time. And one of the last things I remember was they had shared that they don't have a good relationship with their family, specifically the females in their family.
Mm.
And you know, there was also distance, right? Like physical distance. So I was the one driving.
Mhm.
They didn't have a driver's license. They didn't even know how to drive. And so I was making the visits to see them. And I ended up expressing to them, you know, I was like, you know, it'd be nice to get some gas money to get there, right? So then I can come and see you, but not have to worry too much. And they would also offer. But then when I would call them on the offer, they would retract and be like, you know, I don't really have the money right now. I was like, well, then I can't really come and see you. And so, but during this conversation about their, you know, the lack of relationship between their female sides, they had expressed that, you know, they'll say mean things, and and that's kind of what caused that rift between them and their female sibling. And then their female sibling had actually recorded them when they were in this, trash talk moment.
Mm.
And that sibling shared that video with the niece. So they haven't had a good relationship with that sibling and that niece for the last 5 years. And I asked, I was like, well, do you regret, saying what you said? Like, have you tried to rebuild that relationship and apologize? They don't think they did anything wrong.
Mm.
But I kept that in the back of my mind. And so the way we ended our conversations with each other was they sent me messages, and I started sending them my Cash App and my PayPal and my Venmo, because that was the only way I was going to see them. You pay me to come over, I'll go over. And he was just like, I don't know. I don't understand why you send this to me, blah, blah, blah. I don't have the money, but you offer. So don't offer me something that you can't offer. And at that point, uh, I was like, okay. I was like, well, whatever. And they got into an irate moment, and then they started trash talking to me, trash talking in the way that I had shared with them something that was very personal. And I was going through an issue earlier this year, and I was very open with them about it. And so in one of the messages they sent me, they threw it back into my face. So that was, again, they offered or seemed like they were a person of safety, but when they threw what I had disclosed to them uh, back at me, right, to shame me for who I am, I was like, I'm really glad that I started to distance myself, because that's just something that, I'm not dealing with. That's something that a prior person that I was in a relationship had done to me. And again, it's seeing those type of similar behaviors, right, that someone will reflect. And I'll be honest. So this past year, I was misdiagnosed, because I really was misdiagnosed, that I had herpes. And I had I went through this whole 4-month ordeal having to get retested to see what was going on. Someone I had sex with decided to take off the condom midway in the action. And, they had exposed me to an STI called mycogenitalium. And so I got retested from January to April. I thought I had herpes. When I retested in April, I found out it was an STI and not herpes. And I was so grateful for that. But for 4 months, I was in this moment of trying to figure out what I was going to do if it became true. But still hoping that it wasn't.
Mhm.
So I'm grateful. So when he came into the picture in April, I was very honest with him about, I'm taking these STI pills. And I didn't share with him the ordeal that I had gone through prior, because at that point when he messaged me, I had found out what I was really going through. And I'm glad that I didn't share with him that part, you know. Um, but even then, me sharing that, oh, I have an STI because someone decided to go against my consent,
I do just
right?
want to point out, and I don't know about California. In North
Hmm.
Carolina, that
Hmm.
is rape. That's called stealthing,
Oh
where
yeah,
and
it's
that is
fucked up.
rape. That is
Yeah.
rape.
Yeah. So, you know, and it's things to be aware of, right? Like, because I was not in consent with that whatsoever. Um, you know, and so it just, but to be able to share that with someone and then it being thrown back at you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just was like, oh, I can't be hanging out with this type of person. But I had a feeling there was more to him than what he was sharing with me in the beginning.
Mhm.
So I was glad that I was distancing myself. And I shared with him too. I was like, you're really strange because I remembered our last interaction. And my last interaction with him was I was not a nice person, and I had blocked him. And so then he comes to find me again, and he had said, "Oh, water under the bridge," or "I don't even care about that, blah, blah, blah." But I felt like there was an alternative intention to why he was reaching out to me. And I felt like it was an intention that was not to my benefit. Um, and so again, I'm glad that I was trusting my intuition. I'm glad that I never went any further with this person, that we only had conversations, that yes, I went to their place and hung out a little bit, but to kind of see who they are, right, in their own realm, but also to see what they're about. Um, being able to drive myself and, be self-reliant in that way. Like I would rather much have a vehicle with me. So then if I needed to leave, I can get the fuck out. Um,
Please tell me you have some fabulously scathing poem about this asshole.
Unfortunately, no.
Ah, ah,
I
because
haven't
I
I haven't
want you
written
to
it
close,
yet, or
I want
I
you to
haven't
close us
bothered
out
because
with a
it's not
poem.
necessary.
I
It's
want you to
not
close us out with
necessary.
some poetry.
But no, actually no. I I was in the midst of writing a poem about it because I thought it was hilarious. Let's see, does this book have it? It might be like a process of it. Let me see. Let me see if it's in here. If not, I'll do my best to work on it and within a few days. But it's pretty much to, where do you go? All right. I did like a month of some poems. Now I just have the title for it.
Well, what was the title going to be?
Broke ass bitches.
Ah!
No, it was funny, but I do have a sensual poem from prior before that poem, so I could share that.
Let's go. Let's go.
All right. So, okay. Always stay hydrated. Magnesium pills a must have. For nights of debauchery, rest is necessary. Good food always accepted. Take care of you. Meet and be with people concerned with and about preventative care. Foreplay. The acts themselves of following through. Less talk, more showing. And especially always, anywhere and everywhere. Aftercare. All of the above, all at once. Only those who can provide are allowed into your miraculous realm and can partake on the nectars of your fruits with enthusiastic starvation for your sustenance. Provide a space of safety where my soul, heart, spirit, essence, body, mind are fed. abundantly and my desires fulfilled beyond capacity. Okay, maybe not essential as I thought.
No, I love that. That expresses the ethos of so much that we've talked about during this conversation. So I'm so glad you chose to read that one. You have
Yeah,
another one?
I do. Okay, this one is called Dark Spaces Only Headlights. Breaking levees, streams becoming waterfalls, evolving to rivers, submerging into oceans, courtship, musings in the details, reminiscing of youthful days, discoveries of new souls, and what makes them heavenly. Endorphins when dreams and fantasies come true. But oh, how sweet is our taboo when fingers and mouths are in play. That's all I got on that one.
Nice. Definitely heading in a sensual direction there.
Yeah. Yes, it's, again, it's fun when you meet people that bring those type of experiences, and then you want to just relive them in poetry and share them, with people. Um, yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good one too. But yeah, I've had, because I had that 6-year relationship, right? Um, I have a lot of writing in that relationship, from how it first started, which was really nice, to then how it started developing, and then the downfall of it. And I think I write more of the good when I'm with people than the bad.
Mhm.
It just all depends. But like for this particular person, right, because it was a short, fleeting moment of kind of getting to know them. Uh, I think that's why I haven't bothered with uh, writing this particular piece. But this particular piece, though, when I do sit down and write it, um, it really just is, again, a celebration of yourself despite what someone is going to say to you, right?
Mhm.
Because again, when someone talks shit to somebody, right, it really is a projection of themselves onto you. It really is a form of attack and shaming of who you are. And it's their idea of how they want to box you in, into how they want to shape and mold you into. Um, so really the important thing is knowing who you are as a person, knowing what your boundaries are, and just always trusting your feelings, your perspective, and just what you're going through, because what you experience is valid and should be considered high priority than what another person says or tries to tell you what things are. um Gaslighting is a real thing. So I just want to emphasize, so love bombing is when someone gives you a lot of praise. Maybe it's overzealous praise, but it's this constant like attention, and it can come in any form. It can come in the in the form of words. It can come in the form of the amount of time that they spend with you, right? If they're like constantly sending you text messages, if they're constantly keeping you on the phone. But love bombing can be it's a form and way of where it's a distraction from your routine. Gaslighting is where you're going through a particular experience, right? You see it this way. This is what's really happening. It's factual. but you're being told the opposite of what it is, to the way where you really start to feel like you're going out of your mind because you know you're seeing things a particular way. You know you're feeling and going through something, but your perspective, your experience is being completely invalidated and told it's not true. And it really and people can participate in that without even the knowledge that they're in support of you being gaslit. Um, just from my own experience.
And I just want to add another form of gaslighting is when someone says they are upset and that they were triggered by the way you felt. Like it made me so upset when you got mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
What? Who said I was mad at you? That's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, all kinds of gaslighting tactics.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that you have such a strong sense of self and that you are promoting, self-love and self-knowledge and self-care. I think that's beautiful. You are definitely a free spirit, a free thinker, and a woman on a mission. And I can't see anybody keeping you in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got too much love and personality to keep that contained within four
Thank you.
walls.
I
Or
appreciate
six,
it.
I should say.
I know, right? I
All right,
mentioned
you want to
four.
close that? Well, first of all, do you want to read another piece? And then also, you need to tell everybody where they can find you and find your work.
Okay, so my name is Naked Poet, Nopal_flower, and I do have books on hand to sell. So if you want a signed copy, you just reach out to me on my Instagram, DM me. Naked Poet's probably the easiest one to reach out to, just because it's the word naked, poet put together, spelled as it sounds, and it's easy. I have a link tree on either of those platforms that will lead you to the Etsy page, because I do have t-shirts for sale, and also to the Amazon page of where you can purchase the book online as well. And yeah, $20 for family and other problems, uh, violence, death, y resistencia con besos is the other book I let out last year. That one's 28. And yeah, so those are the books. Again, t-shirts is the way you can support, or if you want to subscribe to my OF, that's another thing. Uh, and I'm in the Los Angeles area. I try to frequent open mics. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, just go visit to an open mic and you might find me there. And so let me close out with this one poem. All right. This is untitled. This life is beautiful. Follow your instinct, regardless of the path you do not take. Dance to your own rhythm. Cry out loud and sing. Awaken your heart with all of your spirit and soul, with the entirety of you. You may find a whole new playlist of music when making friends with the most obscure people, a love interest perhaps. In the meantime, enjoy the journey of me time. Take yourself out, explore the city you live in, join the center of a drum circle and lay down. Watch the sky and be one with the beating of your own heart. Enjoy the slowing down of time and the perfect synchronicity of being on time. Never rush to your destination. You'll arrive where you need to eventually. Side note, never use alcohol based scented oils on your genitals. Rest when you can, and if you cannot, just know it was all worth it.
Go.
Amazing.
Let's go.
This has been so awesome to getting to know you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Um, I hope I gave out some good words of wisdom.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
This
I
is
think there is a lot of meat to chew with this conversation that we've had. And I so thank you for being here and sharing yourself with us.
yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad that I got to finally come out, and be part of this wonderful series that you guys got going on here, to acknowledge some very powerful poets and artists in our communities. And I'm gonna definitely listen to some playbacks because I think I've definitely missed out on some good interviews. So I'm glad y'all doing this and making it happen.
Absolutely. And to that end, anyone who wants to check us out on YouTube, The Heart of the Artist 143, please like and subscribe. So, and we're going to go off camera as soon as we finish the recording to continue the discussion. But thank you, everybody, for being here and being part of the audience and watching and just appreciating our amazing guest, the Naked Poet, aka Nopal Flower.
Thank you.
Until next time, peace, love, and poetry.